Hello everyone, I am Dr. Vaishnavi, your ENT faculty, and I'm available on various online and offline platforms. The basic purpose or intent of doing today's video is to understand what is active learning and what is passive learning and decide what's the best that works for you. I've had queries from my students who've been asking me that how can we recall the subject better? We have 19 subjects to study and you have to study in depth. You have to know the clinical scenarios. You have to know so many things about each subject, and to recall or memorize or to retrieve these facts in the correct order, correct form in the exam becomes difficult. So by the end of this video, I think that most of you will be able to decide what works the best for you. I will be giving pros and cons of both the types of reading and how do we go about these types of readings, and how we can improve our memory and recall better. So with this, I'll just start get going. So if you see this picture, you have a picture over here, and if I do not mention to you that there are a subtle differences between these two pictures, you probably will just skip this picture in a minute and ask me to move to the next slide. But if the same thing I mentioned to you as a teacher, that there are subtle differences in picture 1 versus picture 2, and you are supposed to find it, then you keenly look into both the pictures and try to identify what are the differences between these two pictures. So similarly, like this, you have got questions in your exams or facts in your exams that if you just read superficially, they appear the same to you, and you have to read them, or your teacher has to probe you to understand that there are a little bit of subtle differences which you need to differentiate to differentiate one condition from another to get the correct answer in your exam. It's not going to be an easy cakewalk for you that you are just going to go into the exam and have direct questions. These subtle differences are the ones which will make a difference in your exams. So with this picture, the idea is you have to be a keen observer, a keen learner, and a keen understanding person that will help you go forward in your exam. Now, what is the meaning of an active learning? What is the meaning of passive learning? So in an active learning or an active learner, as you can see, when the facts are thrown upon the student, so when the facts are thrown on the student is simultaneously working on those facts. So with the teacher, the student is simultaneously working on these facts and trying to understand what is happening. Whereas passive learning is just receiving the information. So it is just receiving the information without any feedback. So you're just receiving the information and you're not having any feedback, and you feel that you have known the subject. So you have just the familiarity with the subject, and you do not have a complete confidence on that subject because you are just exposed to that subject and you're feeling that you know the subject and you're familiar with it, and this will give you a false knowledge effect. So you feel that you have read the subject, you know the subject, and then when you go into the examination hall, you feel that, oh yeah, I studied this question, but I'm not able to recall. So this false knowledge effect happens when you are doing a passive learning. So what is an active learner doing? An active learner is simultaneously analyzing the subject, asking questions to himself. What if this question can be asked in a different way? Why is this condition like this? How can I remember this in a better way? So there are analysis that is happening in the learner simultaneously when the teacher is explaining. Also, the teacher plays a very important role in such situations where the teacher is probing the student to help identify the key points, the key notes, and to identify those differences which actually matter for your exams. Now we will see what is the best form of learning. Is it active learning or passive learning? So as a doctor myself, I am supposed to give you evidence-based studies. I can't tell you that in my experience, I feel that active learning is better than passive learning. No, I have to give you evidence. So what does evidence say about these types of learning? So evidence says that active learning can improve cognitive outcomes within a class. So there when you do an active learning and a passive learning, an active learning improves the cognitive outcome. What is cognitive outcome? It is how you are able to reproduce, how you are able to represent, how you are able to get your knowledge or memory out of your brain at the time of examination. So this improves the cognitive outcome. So there is no major difference between the results that could occur if you're an active learner or a passive learner, but the cognitive outcome definitely improves when you have done an active learning. There are also pyramids and charts which show you that passive learning people are definitely not able to retain or recall information as much as an active learner does. So what does a passive learning student do? He will attend a lecture, he will read books, he will visualize videos or all the online content that you have, and he will probably to certain extent demonstrate. So you're going and attending a classroom lecture and you feel that yes, I have studied. You'll come back home and you'll read books and you'll feel that satisfied that yes, I have done. You'll go to your videos which you have in your apps or which you have in your online platforms and you feel that yes, I have revised. But all these forms are your passive learning. They are not putting you or your brain at task. Now, what is it that will put you or your brain at task? It is discussion. You need to have a very good discussion. You can have the discussion with your student group, which are your friends. You can have the discussion with your teacher group, where you can ask teachers to give you a particular topic prior to discussion, and you will read that topic and then you fix up one time with your teacher and you discuss that particular topic so that the teacher is able to correct you at points where you're going wrong. Then you're going to practice doing certain things, like for example, you are probably learning a chapter today. You are going to practice whatever you have read and you are going to do the MCQs. You are going to question yourself, if this MCQ comes in a different format, how am I going to answer this? Or if there are different options, try to analyze options. Do you remember the subject of those options as well? And if possible, try to teach others or your friends, because when you're teaching, your memory, your understanding over the subject improves. So these forms of things is an active learning group where you discuss, where you practice, and where you probably could also teach others. For example, I will just take one simple example. Say, for example, I'm teaching you rhinoscleroma. And if I want to teach you pathophysiology of rhinoscleroma, I can tell you that there are three phases. Okay, there are three phases, and based upon this, you will have symptom. The first stage is called as atrophic stage. The second stage is called as granulomatous stage. And the third stage is called as stage of cicatrization. Okay, and I'll tell you, atrophic stage, the mucosa becomes atrophic, so you have got crusts in the nose and you have foul smell in the nose. In the granulomatous stage, you will have, because there is name granuloma, you will have a nodule in the nose which is woody hard in consistency. And in stage of cicatrization, as the name suggests, there will be fibrosis and stenosis. Now you will feel that yes, I have understood this. There are three stages in rhinoscleroma. But if I ask you this same question about a month later, more than 90% of you won't be able to recall unless you have revised this. But if the same thing, if I teach you, rhinoscleroma is caused by a gram-negative bacteria. Now, what does this bacteria do when it enters your nose? Because it is an airborne infection. So when you inhale the bacteria, the bacteria enters into the nose. Now, the bacteria wants the environment in the nose favorable for its growth. So how will it make the environment in the nose favorable for its growth? It will make the environment favorable by decreasing the mucus production or by causing atrophy of the mucin producing cells. But why? Mucin contains immunoglobulin. Immunoglobulin is not good for the bacteria. And what does bacteria want? It wants to proliferate. So what does it do? It will go and kill the mucin producing cells. As a result, immunoglobulins are not produced. And as a result, the bacteria can multiply. So when there is destruction of the mucin producing cells, what will happen to the nasal mucosa? There will be atrophy. So you will remember, once the bacteria enters the nose, it wants to proliferate. Because it wants to proliferate, it decreases the mucin producing cells. Because mucin producing cells are destroyed, there is atrophy. Now in your mind, you have made a clinical scenario, or you have had an idea of what is happening when you gain the infection. Now, the bacteria has gone and destroyed. What happens next? Does your immune system comes to rescue? Yes. What do your immune system do? It will send your neutrophils, it will send your macrophages, it will send your epithelioid cells, it will send your giant cells. All these cells will go and fight against the bacteria. As a result of which, there is a central area of necrosis surrounded by these cells, which are your neutrophils, macrophages, epithelioid cells, and giant cells. And this, we already know, this is a granuloma. So this stage is called as granulomatous stage. And what happens? Okay, now the bacteria has first initially tried to multiply. Your immune system has given a response. The third stage is the destruction, or the destroyed area in the nose has to heal. And how does healing occur? It occurs by fibrosis. So fibrosis is stage of cicatrization. So now you have a story formed in your mind, that the first step is bacteria gains entry. It will multiply. Because it wants to multiply, it will decrease the mucin producing cells, causing atrophy. But your immune system is producing a counter response, and the counter response, it will tell the inflammatory cells. These inflammatory cells will form a granuloma, and the destroyed tissue has to heal, and healing occurs by fibrosis. Now the same thing, if I give you a clue after 1 month about rhinoscleroma, that what does this bacteria do on going into the nose? It wants to multiply. Then you will be able to exactly recall the entire story that I have told you, and you will be able to produce the answer. So there is only one key point or one hint that I need to give you for you to remember. So this is your passive learning, where you feel that you have known there are 3 stages, what is happening in these 3 stages. But in your active learning, you're questioning why there is atrophy, why there is granuloma, and why there is cicatrization. And when you know your answers to your why, you will obviously know your symptoms. Then how do you make your passive learning into an active learning? The first thing is highlighting and annotating. Does not mean that you take a book and you highlight each and every point. You are supposed to highlight, or annotate means making small notes for those areas which you feel you are weak at. So when you have studied a particular subject, you have to solve the MCQs, and what MCQs you are making a mistake at, please make small notes of that and put it at the beginning of that chapter, so that once you go to that chapter again, you will read those points first, and then you will be able to recollect. And whenever you're revising, the annotated points will always be there for you for your rescue before going for your exam. Then question yourself. Once you have finished the chapter, now for example, we studied rhinoscleroma in 2-3 minutes last. Now you have to question yourself once you are free. Okay, what is rhinoscleroma? Is it a bacterial infection? Is it a viral infection? It's a gram-positive bacteria, or it's a gram-negative bacteria? What is the mode of acquiring infection? What are the stages? What will be the symptoms? How do you diagnose it? So you yourself are supposed to recall and question yourself. Ask yourself, what were the old questions that I solved on this? What could probably be the new question? And if it's getting difficult for you to do for each individual topic, please take the help of your mentors. Please take help of your subject teachers, who will help you in analyzing these situations, and they will break up that subject to you in minutest of the minute form, and always try to have a one-on-one discussion with your mentor. Then you have to ideate. What is ideate? Make mind maps. Okay, so for example, when you're studying about a bacteria like a rhinoscleroma, which is caused by Klebsiella rhinoscleromatis, which is a gram-negative bacteria. Think about what are all the gram-positive bacteria, which are all the gram-negative bacteria. Klebsiella species belongs to which group? Now you are supposed to think of all the conditions that is associated. Now you have studied about Klebsiella. You need to understand on pathology, what cells do you see? You see Mikulicz cells, you see Russell bodies. You have to identify what is the treatment, and you have to mind map these things. Where else? In the treatment, we use streptomycin, tetracycline, rifampicin. Is streptomycin an ototoxic drug? Yes, it is ototoxic. Now try to identify, remember which are all the other ototoxic drugs. So you have to make mind maps and interlink your study so that when you have an question in your exam, you feel very confident about whatever question comes to you. And it is always a good idea to study with mentor. You have got live sessions, live classes happening on platforms, and I am available on the Unacademy platform. So you can have live session with your mentors, any mentor that you feel comfortable with. When they're taking live classes, it is structured 1 hour or 2 hour classes. You are studying one small subject, you have an access to ask questions, you have an access to clear your doubts. So always it's better to study with a mentor, or if you have a very good friend, you can do it with them, or if you have your seniors who've already cleared this, study with them once in a while. So this will help you in making your process into a more active learning. And it's very important to get exposed to the subject repeatedly, so you can't go on to the books again and again. So once you have finished, say example ENT, you have highlighted the points, you have done the MCQs, you have annotated in your book which are the difficult topics. Try and do the difficult topics most often. Once you have done the difficult topics, at least once in 3 months, assign one day for this particular subject. It could be ENT, it could be author, it could be SPM, whatever. 1 or 2 days, and just flip the pages of the book. Once you flip the pages of the book, you will still be able to understand what you know, what you don't know, and what you don't know, spend some time on that and try to recall or regain that subject. So repeated exposure is again very important, and an active recall. So you have to recall the subject actively without seeing the book. You have to sit back in your free time, think what all you have studied. Say you have studied medicine today, what chapters have you studied? If I ask you what have you studied today, you will tell me about 50 to 60% of what you have studied in the entire day, but you cannot recall the 100% of what you have done. It is a technique that takes some time. You have to actively think, you have to actively try to recall whatever you have studied, and this happens by mind mapping. If you are able to map whatever you're studying in your mind, then once you lay back, once you relax, you are able to recall majority of 80 to 90% of information that you have done, and that will help you recall your subject better. So this is very, very important. So with this, I think that you have understood what's the difference between an active learning and what is the difference between a passive learning. I hope that most of you become active learners, inculcate these points in your active studies, and hope this will help you recall the subject better, and probability that you will get a better rank in your future exams and get the seat of your choice. So with this, I will finish my talk for today. Until then, next time I will see you. Bye bye.